Well, here we are, 8:30 in 10 seconds on a Thursday. I'm going to do this every Thursday live. At least that's my plan. There might be a Thursday at the end of January that I have to move it to another day because I'm going to be in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is always a good destination in the middle of winter in January, especially since there's a cold front coming in, and I'll probably hit at right at the time. So today we're going to talk about, what is our topic today? Mastering the first call. And also on the thumbnail, I said something about filling your funnel. So we'll see if we have time to do that. We may have to move that till next week. So if that was false advertising, sorry about that. But the number one thing I want to talk about today is mastering your first call. Before we do, I want to invite you, every one of you individually, to a masterclass I'm doing on January 31st called How to Use Leverage to Grow Your Business and Income in 2024. You can go to billcaskey.com/masterclass. I'll put it in the notes somewhere, but that's going to be an awesome webinar, 60 minutes complimentary. We're going to talk about how to use leverage. There's 7 to 10 points of leverage that most people just do not use. Actually, we're going to be talking about one of those today, and that is how to leverage your first call. And again, the idea of leverage is how do we take our behavior and modify it to maximize it? We're modifying our behavior to maximize the result we get from it. So if you make 100 first calls in 2024, let's just say that's your goal, couple people a week, and 75% of those turn into prospects because you do it the right way. Doing it the wrong way, 25% of them turn into prospects. And we're going to talk about what the right way is today. Then when you do it the right way, you have 3x'd your result. You've gone from 25 the old way to 75 the new way. You haven't spent any more time. So that's the idea of leverage, is you're spending no more time, but you're maximizing the result and the advantage. So you're tweaking your effort a little bit. You're tweaking what you do to get maximum advantage. And nobody talks about this. I shouldn't say nobody. I have not seen any training on leverage recently. And I want to do that. So January 31st. So today I want to talk about maximizing and mastering the first call. And as you know, I'm always, and by the way, I'll open the comments here. I know that not every one of the platforms we're on can I see the comments, but if you do have a comment, let me know. Let me know where you're calling in from or where you're watching this from. As you know, I always start with mindset. I start all of our training, any kind of new topic. If I'm trying to get you to change behavior over a sustainable period of time, then we always want to start with mindset, because if I just give you advice, you're not going to take it, or you'll take it and you'll use it, and then you won't use it, and then you'll forget you ever used it, then you'll forget who gave it to you. So if you're in training programs or coaching programs and they're not working on changing your mindset around things, it's a waste. We just won't do it. I've been there. I've wasted tons of money on training and coaching where the coach doesn't work through the mindset stuff and goes right to the behavior, and it never sticks. So if we're going to master the first call and we're going to be, maximize the first call, we need to change our mindset first. Number one change of mindset is I am there to serve, not to sell. I don't care if you do business with me. I'm not saying that, but I don't care. I've got a funnel. I've got a pipeline. I've got a system that generates prospects for me. I actually do, and you should too. So that I don't get in any first call and feel any pressure at all to sell anybody. Why would I do that? Why would I do that to them? We say we want to serve our customers, and then we show up and put pressure on them to buy. Is that serving them? Is that really serving? Oh, yes, Bill, it is, because we're going to be able to bring value. Yeah, but you're not going to make the sale. The more pressure you put, you think it raises your odds. It doesn't. It lowers your odds. You can believe that or not, but that's just a fact. That's just human nature, psychology. When you apply pressure, you create resistance. Pressure, resistance, pressure, resistance. Go up to somebody today on the street corner that you don't know. No, don't do that. Find somebody that you know and try to push them down. What do? They resist. They stand up stiffer. They plant their feet. That's what happens when we put pressure on people. They resist. So why put pressure on people? So the first mindset is, I'm here to serve, not to sell. The second mindset is that the world is an abundant place, meaning if you don't buy, somebody else will. And that's the attitude I take. It's not belligerent. It's not abusive. It's not, I'm not belittling or bullying somebody. It's just my state of mind when I show up. And when you have that state of mind, guess what happens? You're of more service to the customer in that state of mind than you are in a typical attached, fearful, scarcity frame of mind. So, okay, we got the two mindsets. Now, what do we do from a mechanical standpoint? So here's what I want to give you. I want to give you 5 things here that may or may not all be a part of your first meeting. What I would recommend you do is go to Google Doc. I was going to show something that I created today, but I don't think I can. I don't have the time to do that. But I'll show you next week a document that I created for today, and I totally spaced printing it out, that I think you should have in front of you whenever you have a meeting. Could be face-to-face, could be on Zoom, could be phone, whatever. I want you to have a document that has these 5 things on it, plus some other things that it's up to you to create. So here are 5 mechanics that I think you need to cover on the first call. Ready? Number 1, you are a merchant for truth. All you care about is truth. That's your whole gig on a first call is truth. Truth from them, truth from you to them. If we're not dealing in truth, then we're each wasting each other's time. And typically when you pull out all the gimmicks that you've learned in sales training 101 from Ziggy Ziglar and Dale Carnegie and all those things, people are onto that stuff. They can see that, can sniff that out a mile away. You kidding me? You can't. When somebody asks a negative question, I can tell you exactly who trained them. Now, I've been involved in the training business, so of course, not the average prospect wouldn't say, well, I'm not going to say the name. So the point there is that I want to create truth. I want to create an atmosphere for truth. And how do you do that? Well, you stop selling. You stop pitching. You say to the prospect on the front end, look, I don't know if I have anything of value for you. I know that we work with a lot of people and they like what we do, and we've got great customers and we've got pretty good stuff. But until I find out a little bit more about you, I don't know if there's anything I can do to help you. So, or to help you solve a problem. You don't have to say help you, but whatever. Just the essence there is, I don't know. I have no idea. And you know what happens when I give that advice? Once people get the mindset right, I'm here to serve, and I'm in an abundant mindset. If I give them that piece of information, that mechanic, it's easy. It's easy to execute. But if I don't give them the mindset, people look at me like, are you kidding me? I would never say that. Zig Ziglar told me to expect to make every sale. Yeah, but you're not going to make every sale. I think you'll make more sales doing it my way and saying, look, I don't know up front. Because remember, what's the overall philosophy that I've taught for the last umpteen years? And if you ever come to me and want work, want coaching, whether you're a VP of sales, CEO, even on the program that we're doing on the 31st, I will tell you that your optimum methodology and philosophy should be they sell you on why they need you, not you selling them on why they need you. It's the craziest thing. Trainers and coaches are still out there teaching the old, well, I'm going to convince you. Here's 17 ways that I'm going to convince you. No, stop convincing. It's much more elegant to do it this way. So be a merchant for truth. Understand that there's the dynamic between a buyer and seller that's kind of vulnerable. It's kind of like the buyer's like, oh, I'm not sure I like this person. And you're like, is this person lying to me? And all that stuff. You just got to get the truth out. Look, I don't know if I can help you. Let's talk for a little bit today and let's decide if there's anything here. If there is, I'm all for that, and we can go to the next step. If there's not, I'm out of here. You're out of here. We'll cut bait as friends and we'll be fine. That's the upfront part of that, creating the truth. I've got a client who, we've got 10 salespeople, and I've been working with him for about 6 months. And 3 of the 10 have really embraced this concept of truthfulness in the buyer-seller dance. And they're so good at this little part that I gave you. I gave you half of it. There's more, but I wanted to get you started today. But they are really good at it. Their sales have doubled in the last 6 months. Those 3 people have doubled. And they will say it's 90% because of what we just talked about. So this idea that it's just a little tactic and, oh, it's just Bill, that's just a little thing. Oh, I already do that. I just didn't know what to call it. That's fine if you do it. But if you don't do it exactly the way I taught you just in the last 5 minutes, then go back and watch this again. Okay, number 2, you've got to have some kind of a story. What's your company story? Do you have a personal story, a company story? Tell some story. People love stories. So when you sit down and say, look, I'm not sure I can help. Let's talk a little bit today. I'll tell you how we work. And then at the end, you can tell me if there's any reason to talk further. They say, okay, great. That sounds good. Then it's time for you to say, look, is it okay if I tell you a 2-minute story on how our company started or how I got here? The reason I want you to tell your story first is because I don't want to just start peppering the prospect with questions. If you want somebody to be resistant to you, start interrogating them. See what happens. See what happens to the vibe in the room when you start interrogating them. And I know we've all been taught, got to ask a lot of questions, ask questions, ask questions. By the time you get there, ask questions. I want to ask questions. Be patient. I want to ask questions. I just don't want to start with it. I want to start with my story, the story of how I got here. A minute-ish is fine. Then I kind of want to hear their story. So given that, tell me, how'd you get here? So now we're getting a couple stories. Now we're bonding at an entirely different level rather than just, boom, getting right into the questions. Now, at some point, you're going to want to ask questions. We'll get to that. So story is number 2. Upfront understanding, creating the truth. That's number 1. Number 2, story. Have a story of some kind. If you're in a business where your personal story actually matters, like in my business, when I talk to prospects, my personal story matters because they're going to be perhaps taking advice from me, or information or counsel. They're going to be putting me in front of their team. They need to trust me a lot. They need to figure out, is this dude, do I trust this guy to put him in front of my team? And if you know my story, then you are much more likely to feel okay with that than if you don't. If you're in a business where your personal story really doesn't matter, then tell the company story. And tell it quickly. Don't get into a 30-minute version of it. That's it for a docudrama. You can prepare that on another day. Just make sure you do that. Okay, number 3, what are some of the objections that you get in the sales process? I'm not talking about this particular person here, but what are the objections? Let's see. I want to see if there's any comments here. Okay, we've got a few listeners. Okay, I know we're on YouTube, Facebook, and I can't see them all. So hopefully you're able to see and hear this. Okay. Can you hear this? Yeah. So what are some typical questions or typical objections you get? Time, too much money, not in the budget, too much work, don't really understand the value of what you have, whatever those objections are. I want you to understand those up front. Because if I'm going to get those objections later on in the sales process, I want to start talking about them early. So let's suppose that price is one of your number 1 objections that you get. It's either too much, or it's not in the budget, or I can't justify it. I want you to lead with that somewhere in the first call. And the way I want you to lead with it is through the idea of a question. So prospect is telling you, sharing a little bit with you about what he or she is looking for, what their pains and problems are, what their dreams are, what they're looking for in an engagement with you or about the product. And at some point you're going to pivot to, well, let me share with you how we work and the framework that we use, or the product that we believe would be helpful. I mean, at some point you got to pivot. This idea that you're not telling them anything on the first call, they can go to the internet and find out what you do in 1.5 seconds. So this old notion of don't tell them anything in the first call, just ask questions, I think it's BS. That's just not the way people decide today. They will move on and they'll find somebody else who will give them some information. So I'm free with information. I'm not going to tell them how to solve the problem, but I'm going to share some of our, how we go about it, some of our philosophies, things like that. But I would always want to turn the objection into a question. So let's say price is it. I might say something like, on the first call, people typically want to know generally where the pricing for something like this is, although it's a little bit difficult for me right now to pinpoint exactly because I'm still in the process of understanding what you're trying to accomplish and when you're trying to accomplish it. Generally, here's where we are. And the type of question that comes in is, give me some kind of general understanding. So you're always out of roll for a second. You're always framing the objection in form of a question. You're not framing it as an objection. It's a question because it is a question. So if you have an objection that typically comes up, reframe it in the form of a question. Find a time during the first call. Don't have to be regimented with it. I know sometimes people are, at the 14th minute is when I do the pivot. Okay. I think you're obsessed with process a little bit too much. I'm all for process, but I want this to be an organic thing. I want this person to feel like we're kind of making this stuff up as we go because of the nature of the relationship that we're building here. That's a whole lot more powerful than turning into some AI bot where every 3 minutes you're changing the subject or you've got this whole thing scripted out. I don't ever script out a call. I script out the first minute or two through the upfront understanding and that creating the atmosphere. Beyond that, I don't care where it goes. It'll go in the right place. If I'm decent at what I do, it'll go in the right place. If I'm bad at what I do, I'll let it wander all over the place. So I just want you to be good. Number 4. Number 4, then, the thing that will help you master the first call is your questions. It's the type of questions that you have. Do you have typical questions that you ask on a first call? I'm sure you do. Is it written down somewhere? Is it in a Google Doc? Is it in a Word doc? Is it in a doc? Duck. Is it duck, duck, goose? Is it in any kind of a document? Or do you wing it? Don't tell me you wing it. Don't wing it. I don't care if you've been in sales 1,000 years. You're Methuselah, number one salesperson for the last 900 years, Methuselah. If you don't have these things written down, you are winging it. On a good day, you'll remember all 12 questions. On a bad day, you'll miss 2, and those 2 could be the difference makers. So I'm fascinated with, when I watch $1 million producers, and I have several of them that I work with. These are folks that earn very high income. They're all meticulous note takers. They're meticulous about their processes and about their, in the insurance business, you used to call it opening a file, and you would literally have a cover and you'd have a 11 by 17 folded, and they would take time and they'd go through it and they'll tell me about your income last year. And we love that because it told prospects that somebody was actually listening and writing things down. We've gotten away from that. Get back to it. In a world of AI and chat bots and automation where people are not talking to anybody, you show up and do that, it's a difference maker. So I want you to have the questions, but I want you to have them written down somewhere. Okay. Number 5. At the end, I want to do check-in and next steps. Check-in before next steps. I don't just want to finish the meeting and say, okay, I'm going to call you. Would next Wednesday at 2 or would Thursday at 3 be a better time? Dale Carnegie Close, page 101. No, just say, look, before we decide what to do next, I just want to check in with you today. What have you learned today? What did you discover? How did you feel our conversation went? Just check in with people. Nobody does this either. And it doesn't have to be, tell me how great I am as a questioner. No, you're not looking for strokes here. You're just looking for the truth. The truth. Did we talk about that earlier? I think we did. So just check in with people. Dan, hey, before we talk about next steps, how did you think we did today? Did we get anywhere? Do you feel more comfortable, less comfortable? Do you feel like I asked the right questions? Did I miss any question? And then you can say, based on what we talked about, let me share with you what I think might be the next logical step. And you tell me if you agree or not. It's not, I'm going to call you next Wednesday at 9 to get a decision. That's not the move. You're not creating an atmosphere of trust and truth then. If you say, is it okay if I share with you what I think the next step should be? And then you tell me if that's okay, that okay. They'll always say, or most of the time they'll say, yeah, it's fine. Or they'll say, no, I'd like to tell you what time I want you to call me back. Or I don't ever want to hear from you again. Okay, that's cool. So those are the 5 things. Create an atmosphere for trust and truth. Tell your story. Frame your objections that you typically get in the form of questions and pose them and answer them up front. You have your own questions to work through. Have some kind of a document that you pull out or at least refer to on Zoom. And then the last thing is a check-in and next steps. Number 5 is just check in with the people and next steps. All right. So who has a question? Many thanks. Thank you so much. Okay, I figured you got something if you're thanking me. We got quite a few people on YouTube, a couple on LinkedIn and Facebook. All right. So hopefully that's helpful today. I want you to master the first call. And to be honest with you, even if you're not in frontline sales, mastering the call, the meeting, is a really important part. I just had a situation about a week ago. My mother-in-law passed away, and we had a meeting with an attorney, financial planner kind of person. And it was an attorney, actually. And we were trying to figure out the next steps. And he was not helping us at all. He was not helping us. Now, he wasn't trying to sell us it. Well, he was going to bill more, but we were going to use him regardless because he was the attorney for the estate for my mother-in-law. But he didn't help us. I had to literally draw out of him, okay, well, what's step number 1? What's step number 2? What's step number 3? Because we're executor of the estate. Well, no, I've never executed estate, if that's the right word. Executed. Hopefully I'm not executing people. But I do want you to be clear up front in those first meetings. And what I would have preferred him say is, look, you're the executor. I've got a 5-point checklist we're going to go over today of exactly what you need to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month. That would have been awesome. He didn't do that. We finally got to it, but that would have been a perfect way for him to bring value and save a lot of time. Now, he might have been charging us, but I don't think he was. So any kind of meeting, you can use these 5 things. All right. I'll see you next time. Good job. What's the best way to approach a prospect? Cold DM. Okay, now we're getting some questions now that I've got to go. What would you do if the prospects aren't open to tell the truth or talk about their issues? Well, if you show up, I'm struggling with your name here, so I won't try to pronounce it CN. If you show up and they're giving you nothing, then I can't. How can I help them? How can I help them? I just got to pass. I got to move on. I got to leave. And I might say on the way out the door, say, look, typically these kinds of calls don't go this way. I typically ask questions and we find out information about each other so that we can determine, I sense you're reluctant to do that. That's totally okay. I can't help you. You got to move on. What's the best way to approach a prospect as a cold DM? I would be very casual with it. I get a lot of DMs. They're all awful. I've gotten a couple in the last month that I've actually called people back because they were funny. They were like, one guy said something about, yeah, you're ready for another DM slap pitch. That's pretty good. That's kind of what it feels like. And he said, look, if you don't want to do this, that's fine. But here's my invite. I want to have a cup of coffee to talk about it. And we're going to meet. And because he approached me in the right way. So just think about how you would want to be approached. Approach people that way. Okay, thanks so much. Good job. Okay, I'm going to end the stream. Nice work, everybody. See you back here next Thursday. Make sure you go to our January 31st deal. Let's see. Where is it? Is that it there? Oh, no, that's not it. Go to the January 31st, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's called How to Use Leverage and Grow Your Business and Income in 2024. See ya.